Hey gunfighters, today is just going to be a random medley episode of different tactical topics because a lot of things come up that don't warrant, in my opinion, an entire episode, but are still important nonetheless and should be answered. In keeping with that, I'm going to talk about those things today, whether they pop up in the group chat on Patreon or I just get them randomly. It's going to be a medley, so whatever you're into, you probably find something that interests you today. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way with Almighty God at the center, biblical, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. First one's going to be about drones. So hot right now. Now, I'm not talking about like the Predator drones that are the size of an actual plane that fly out of Creech Air Force Base all the time. I'm talking about the small little handheld drones like you'd order on Amazon or wherever. And I am not a drone expert. I don't like drones. I don't even have a television. All right, guys? So when it came time to make a podcast, I hired some young millennial and gave him $100. And I was like, make this go on the internet. I'm not a drone expert. I don't play video games. I don't own a joystick. I'm not a drone expert. But pretty good at shooting stuff, by God's grace. If you're talking about a small drone, your best bet's going to be a shotgun. A shotgun is designed to shoot stuff out of the air. Now, what's your range on that? With the right choke, with the right shot, you might push it to 50 yards, maybe 75 yards, talking about like an old goose gun with a full choke and the right load if you get a good pellet in the right place. Now, I don't know because I haven't shot a lot of drones. If you guys want to pitch in and send me like 100 drones, I'd be happy to shoot them with a bunch of different shots at a bunch of different distances, hovering in the air and see what works best. But it's going to be better than anything else, shy of like you having a Dillon minigun. Shotgun's going to be the best for that. I mean, if you guys can think of something better for drones until they make a directional EMP gun or something, which they don't, I don't think. Shotgun's going to be your best bet for that. Once again, the shotgun for the win on the ultimate survival tool. Just throw that in the toolbox for a versatile weapon. Buckshot, slugs, birdshot, less lethal, breaching, and killing drones. So there's that. Another one, what do I think about cold steel knives? I think cold steel makes a good knife for the money. They're a good value knife. Now, they're not my EDC knife, but if you told me I had to carry one of the decent fixed blade knives for EDC and it had to be a cold steel, I wouldn't throw a fit about it. It'd be fine. They're good knives for the money, and they're generally pretty affordable. They're made in Taiwan. I think usually, they may make one or two in the U.S., but mostly I think they're made in Taiwan. I'll take Taiwan over China. Taiwan is not China. It's a different thing, different government. So I got less of a problem with Taiwan than with China. So yeah, cold steel, they make some good stuff for the money. Talking about mounting optics, I got this question recently. I did my episode on the Beretta 92 versus a SIG 226, and I said the main difference there is the optics mounting. And somebody asked, is it really, more rugged, more reliable to have the direct mount than a plate? Yeah, I definitely think that it is. With a direct mount, you can get two big, beefy screws directly through the optic into the slide. There's nothing to wiggle around. You mount it directly to it, two big screws. With an optics plate, generally, they're smaller screws. You're mounting two smaller screws into the slide and then into the plate. And then generally the plates are pretty thin, right? They have to be. They can't be anywhere near as thick as a slide. So they're pretty thin, which means the two screws you put into those plates are pretty thin and don't have a lot of, thread locking ability in there. They generally will have enough, but that doesn't instill a lot of confidence. And then you have, four screws. And if any one of them come loose, that can give you a problem instead of two big beefy screws. And if I have a direct mount where the screws go directly from the optic into the slide, then if one of them does come loose, I can just tighten it. If let's say a screw comes loose in the plate in the slide, I have to I have to take off the optic and take it off and all that stuff to get to those screws and then redo it all. So Yeah, definitely a direct mount is a way better system. You can get, adapter plates that work and they work okay, but really if you can, get a direct mount. Simpler is generally better. There are a few things less rugged than a dual illuminated Trigicon RMR that doesn't take batteries. It's not electronic, right? It runs off radiation and ambient light. Those things are so rugged, it's crazy. I am more confident that thing will last than the iron sights. I've seen iron sights break more than I've seen Trigicon RMRs break. But especially the non-electronic ones, you mount that directly into the slide with two big beefy screws that have blue Loctite covered all over them. I have a lot of confidence in that system. Anything that you stray away from that, I have less confidence in. So yeah, I do think a direct mount on a handgun of an optic is better. Also, you can generally run better iron sights. I don't know about better, but smaller, more regular iron sights if you're not dealing with the optics plate. Because if you deal with the optics plate, a lot of times that optic's going to be so high, you have to have taller sights, which suppressor height sights, not a big deal, except for you may have a really hard time finding a holster that will work with it. Like when I got the Beretta to work and I finally got an optic and a plate and everything that worked, which was a giant pain in the butt, the two holsters that I could get, on my second holster, I finally just took a Dremel and hogged out a giant channel where the sights are because it didn't fit in a regular holster. So that's another thing you should be aware of. It's not a deal breaker, right? It was still a good gun. I just prefer a direct mount. If you're asking me, do I think it's as good? No, I don't think it's as good. One of the things I hope they're rectifying, and I'm not a Glock guy, but the MOS system on the Glock is especially garbage. It was like, what's the minimum we can do to say you can put an optic on here? And that was the Glock MOS system. The new system on the Gen 6 Glock, granted I haven't held one yet, but just looking at pictures, it looks like you can probably direct mount right to that slide, which is a way better system, and it's probably why they're doing it. Those little teeny plates that come with the MOS system, they're not the most rugged. They're not even close. So, yeah, if you can direct mount, in my opinion, and unless there's some weird reason why you don't want to, yeah, direct mount on the slide. It's a better system. It's a more simpler system, generally more rugged. You just have less to go wrong. Got a question on gloves recently. Now, I hate gloves. I hate wearing gloves. I hate shooting with gloves. I will do it if I have to. But my general thing is if I can get away with not wearing gloves, don't wear gloves. If you're going to be out and about and shooting and it's a long gun and you can have it on a sling, you might look at getting a muff instead or just throwing hand warmers in your jacket pocket. But a muff is pretty good if you know what that is. And if I have to, just the old school military fingerless 100% wool gloves, they're okay. Like I can shoot with them if I have to. I don't like wearing gloves in general. I don't like gloves on my hand. I don't even like a lotion. I think that's, slippery slope to becoming a metrosexual. Say no to lotion, say no to chapstick. I don't mess with that crap. If you can, just get by without the gloves. If you absolutely must have gloves, the just cheap fingerless, they're not that cheap, but 100% wool, not some cotton glove, not some poly cotton blend, but 100% wool fingerless gloves, like the military gloves. They're okay. Like you can shoot okay with them. If I'm doing something where I know I'm going to be wet, my hands are going to be wet and they're going to stay wet for a long time, like, trapping in water, things like that. The neoprene, diving gloves, yeah, okay. Yeah, if it's like that or frostbite or you're going to lose your hand, yeah, those big, thick neoprene gloves, if your hands are going to be wet and stay wet, those can be really nice. Even on those, I like the ones where the fingers peel back, though, because trying to get anything done that requires fine motor skill with those neoprene gloves is a pain in the butt. But it's a good question. A lot of people wear gloves. I was recently out shooting with gloves just because it might happen, right? Even though I hate gloves and try to wear them as little as possible, it is winter. Right now, I live in a state that borders Canada, so it gets a little chilly. So if you are going to wear gloves, make sure you train with them. Got another question I think is a good one. One of the patrons asked in one of our group chats, I'm looking at getting I don't know what he said, but I'm going to put words in his mouth, a nicer handgun, a more refined handgun. He's maybe tired of slumming it with the Glock, not his words, my words. He wants a more refined gun. And he was asking about a 2011 versus a SIG 226 single action only, which if you guys listen for any length of time, you'll know I have quite a bit of experience with both. And I asked him, what's it for, right? If it's just for the range or a CONUS clean operation, when I was the commander of a tactical team, an S.R.T team, stop active shooters, my carry gun, my duty gun was a 2011. But it's a pretty clean, sanitary environment. And for just pure shooting and getting quick hits on target, it's hard to beat a 2011. It really is. They're so shootable, so nice. They are like, I'm not a car guy, but the Ferrari of handguns, right? The SIG 226 is also very good, very sleek, very fast, but it's a lot simpler and more rugged. So if you're talking about a gun for the apocalypse, you're talking about a gun for nasty operations, for deployment, for even day-to-day carry, because your carry gun, unless you clean it every day, can get really nasty and dirty. I carry a full-size fighting handgun. I have two 2011s, the original STI, I don't know about the original. I think the original might have been a para-ordnance, but the old STI before they were staccato. They're great guns, but I don't generally carry them day to day. One, because they're heavy, and two, because they're a lot more complicated, and they do require a little bit more TLC. I generally EDC a SIG 226, single action only, because it's also very rugged, very fast, very shootable, and it's a lot simpler and more rugged of a design. I would say it's one of the most dependable guns ever designed by human beings ever. So if you just want pure shootability and you're going to keep it clean and work on it, like when I was the commander of a tactical team, I was working mostly in urban indoor environments. Yeah, they're great for that. They're super shootable. If you want a more rugged, reliable design that's also a lot better than a Glock or a #MeToo polymer striker fired handgun, yeah, the SIG 226 single action only is a very good option. I would also say if you're not going to mount optics on it and have to deal with plates and stuff like that, the Berettas. I like a Beretta. I like the original design. I don't think they did a very good job trying to get them to mount optics, but they're single action only Berettas. If you're just going to run iron sights or you want to dedicate to double single action, those are a very good, elegant gun also, and they're very, very affordable for what you get. But of those two, it kind of depends. Do you just want a really good shooter at the range and clean environments? Go with the 2011. Do you want, and I'm talking about a real 2011, like not some Turk nasty, looks like a 1911 with a fat grip. I'm talking about an actual 2011. Fantastic guns. Very, very reliable if you take care of them and keep them clean. And you know how to work on a 1911, because being a gunsmith on a 1911 is kind of its own art and skill. Right? Knowing how to tune an extractor is a thing. If you don't want to deal with that or want a more rugged AK-47-esque handgun, go with the SIG 226. But it's a good question. What are my thoughts on the new Glenfield rifle? Glenfield, if you don't know, is like a budget brand way back in the day. Now that Ruger bought Marlin, and they're doing a good job with that, they also have the Glenfield name. They're reintroducing the Glenfield rifles. Now, just looking at it, I don't know. I haven't taken them both apart side by side, but the Glenfield just kind of looks like a Ruger American Gen 1. Now that the Ruger has the American Gen 2, and they're both good rifles. I think they're just the old Gen 1, since they're still good rifles, they're slapping the Glenfield name on there. It could be wrong. Could be something radically different between the Ruger Gen 1 and the Glenfield, but just looking at them, it looks like a Glenfield. There's nothing wrong with that. If you like that old name or you want the budget version, because Ruger American's are already kind of a good budget rifle. If you want a push feed, plastic stock, probably decent shooting, budget rifle, yeah, the Glenfield's probably solid, assuming it is just based on the Ruger American Gen 1. 3-lug, push feed, bolt action rifle, it should be fine. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for now. I hope you guys appreciated just kind of the medley of random stuff. Again, I don't think any of those were worthy of an entire episode, other than maybe an entire episode on optics mounting on handguns is maybe warranted now that I think about it. But most of those are not a full episode's worth, just kind of random one-offs. Hopefully it was helpful to somebody out there looking for gloves or optics mounting or stepping up from a polymer striker-fired handgun. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all that you do. Since there was a lot of tips in today's episode or advice, I'm going to forego the tactical tip, but I will throw in the tactical verse of the day. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You'll find that in Leviticus 19. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.